These are Borah voices.
This is Chuck McHenry, host of the Borah Pridecast, and I am happy that you have decided to turn on and subscribe for episode 6. We'll have a cool interview from our art department and a little bit of talk about the cafeteria workers, of course the prep period cold call, the Hattie Minute, and some interesting and exciting sounds from our second annual Bridge Carnival in the cafeteria. Hope you listen.
I am often in and out of the art studio at Borah, Miss Compton's room, not mine. She usually focuses on painting and drawing, while I focus on ceramics. It's always interesting to walk over, see what those kids are doing and what kind of artwork they're coming up with. Last semester, I watched a student create a series of art that caught my attention, as it did Miss Compton, her art teacher, and Mrs. Wall, her special ed teacher. The series was named On the Spectrum. I have these two wonderful teachers in the recording studio with me today to talk about On the Spectrum and the talented artists that created the artwork. Miss Compton, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you teach.
My name is Jen Compton. I teach the two-dimensional arts at Borah, all levels of drawing, painting, AP design, and AP drawing.
And Mrs. Wall, you're here with us too. What do you teach?
I am the teacher of the extended resource room here at Borah. We have students that go off campus for job sites. We work on more life skills, math, and English reading activities, help them for their after high school graduation goals.
So let's start with you, Miss Compton. Start by describing to our listeners what the final project looked like so that we have a visual image of the piece.
On the Spectrum is a series of small pieces of cardboard. Basically, they look sort of tile-like that one of my students cut every single day to work on. Each of them has 3 stripes on them, 2 large stripes, kind of bookended with a small stripe in the middle. All the stripes are some sort of value of gray that this artist mixed every single day. So each tile has 3 stripes, and there's hundreds of them.
What kind of size, once you put them all together into this series, what kind of size are we talking about?
Well, when I installed the work first at the District Service Center, I was working in a space that was about 5 by 9 feet, 4 by 9 feet, something like that. Although really it was only that size because that's the size I had to work with. I probably installed only about a third of the total amount of pieces that I had.
So relatively large and could get bigger.
Huge,
depending on the space.
Could have been a lot larger, yes.
And then where did this student's artwork originate?
So this student started in painting 1 at the beginning of the semester. We all started off of doing a specific assignment where we were working just on blending paint. So we were just trying to get a hold of this kind of liquid media. And I had set up a format where students were working through a grayscale, and just like she started painting, there was a series of 3 stripes on each piece of cardboard as we were practicing the blending process. 1 stripe was from white to a mid-tone gray, then mid-tone to black, and then the last one was all the way through the value scale from white to black. So the structure and format was something that this student kind of latched onto from that first day in class when we were mixing and blending paint. It's just something that she decided never to deviate from.
Miss Wall, can you please talk about this student so the listeners can get to know her as a person?
Sure. This is a really fun student of mine. I enjoy being around her a lot. She will often speak to herself, and she's walking around kind of uttering towards you, and unless you're kind of paying attention, you're not really quite sure, but she is attempting to communicate with other people, other students. She's always in a pretty pleasant mood, and she does well in her reading and math skills. She enjoys Wonder Woman for sure, and Mountain Dew, and one of her favorite colors is gray, which is the focus of her painting. So I thought that was interesting.
And this student, she has autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. Can you please explain what this is to our listeners?
Sure. So autism spectrum disorder, it's a name for a group of developmental disorders. It's a wide range. That's kind of why it's called the spectrum. Some symptoms or signs of people with ASD, they're often characterized by a difficulty to communicate with others, some challenges in social interactions, and then a lot of times they have topics or a certain thing that they really enjoy, the repetition of, and the structure of their day, for example, how things go. So that kind of.
So, Ms. Compton, knowing that, what role did autism play in the creation of the artwork? I'm especially thinking about the tendency for sameness, order, routine.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. The first day or two as she was working through this, I didn't notice it at all because we were all sort of working within a format that was very similar. She was doing more singular tone versus blending from one color to another, but she was really working in a similar way to the rest of the class. But as we moved on to other exercises and she decided to just repeat the processes that she was doing, I found it really, really interesting to just kind of look at it as a visual representation of her diagnosis within that spectrum. Like, this was something she was finding not only interesting, but also kind of comforting. She was also producing more work than anyone in class. And so it was something I decided was just really something I should latch on to, just letting her do and just let her process in the way that made the most sense to her. So I really did look at it as an illustration of who she was specifically on the spectrum of autism. And the further she got into the process, the more interesting it really became, because as they started collecting together, I mean, I had bins and bins of these that I just kept through the semester as she worked. There was just so much infinite variety within that structure that she used. I mean, every tile was hand cut every single day. She went to the cardboard bin. She selected a specific piece of cardboard to work with. She cut it into a series of rectangles. She took those rectangles to her seat. She got a new plate. She remixed her black and white into a unique shade of gray, so every day was a little bit different. The sizes of the stripes varied a little bit. And so even though she was doing a repetitive process, there was so much infinite variety to the visual that it collected that just made it that much more interesting to me as she processed through her pieces.
Well, thanks for giving her the opportunity to figure that out and work through it instead of pushing her onto something else as you do your other students. It's a nice space to work in for her. Mrs. Wall, anything else you'd like to add?
I just think that we're really lucky here at Borah to have teachers like Ms. Compton and yourself, Mr. Rose, that welcome students with different abilities into their classrooms. And it's just been so fun to watch these things grow. And, who knows, sometimes when they're allowed to do their own thing, it turns into something as wonderful as this artwork.
And the same for you, helping them out and sending them to us to help facilitate. We really appreciate that too. Thank you both for coming into the studio today. I appreciate it. It was really nice to talk about this artist and her artwork, and hopefully we can have you in soon.
Thanks, Mr. Rose.
Great, thank you.
These are Borah voices.
It's time to take a break for lunch. Lunch. It's time for lunch. Lunch. It's time to munch, crunch, eat a bunch. It's time for lunch, not brunch. I'm starving. Lunch. Lunch. It's time for lunch. Lunch. It's time to munch, crunch, eat a bunch. It's time for lunch, not brunch.
Georgia, this is Hattie.
Nice to meet you,
Nice to meet you. So basically, this is the sort of thing that I think about all the time, like wherever I am. About just like what are the annoying things that I am doing as like a customer of a place or as a patron of a place that could be easily fixed if I just knew to not do the annoying things or whatever. So what are some things that students and staff could do at Borah for the lunch staff that would make it easier for you to do your job?
To be more respectful of us, yeah, would be number one. And in all honesty, I think overall the students and staff are that way. You just have a few that may disrupt. They get in big groups and they come through and they're loud and noisy and obnoxious. But it's their lunch hour or it's their break, and you hate to be. We're not their babysitters. There's of course, there's a lot of cutting and lines, and we have long lines, and I used to try to monitor that, but I have to monitor a meal and what the if they're meeting the USDA requirements, and so for me to constantly turn around and go, hey, get back there, it just got to be overwhelming.
Bigger fish to fry.
Yes, there's bigger fish to fry, but I said I think overall, I think the students are respectful.
What's your favorite part about working at Borah?
Students.
Students.
I love working with the students, all of the students. this is my third year here, and I would say, I had never been at a high school, let alone a high school that is so integrated. And so that kind of really opened my eyes to to other nationalities, just maybe made me a little more accepting and more understanding of what everybody goes through, and how we all fit in together. Because I always was accepting of other people. And
It's different to have a first-hand experience.
it really is, and to see these kids and what they go through, and then you get to know some of their stories. And
You know how hungry a lot of them are, and they really are.
Sure. Oh, it's like when they come through, and of course they can have two.
Did you work at different cafeterias before Borah?
I did.
Like elementary? Or
Junior high.
Junior high, got it.
So,
How was that different than high school? Or
well,
was it?
high school, once the students seem to hit about ninth grade, they do seem to be aware of adults more so. Because in the junior high, they pretty much, you can talk to them, but they don't hear you. They just don't hear you. So that I think is the biggest change, is the high schoolers are just more aware, more respectful of the adults. They're not so self-absorbed. Yeah. And I enjoy that part. That's why I like the high school.
Is there anything else you want to add? Or
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for all you do for us.
Yeah, thank
For
you.
real.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I enjoy it.
It's time for lunch, not brunch.
Chicken leg, hard-boiled eggs, clams, hams, bread with jams, fish fillet, yogurt parfait, crepes, sandwich shakes, empanada, enchilada, veggie stew, honeydew.
These are Borah voices.
Hello.
Hello, is this Miss Lockwood?
Yes, it is.
Hey, this is Patrick Rose with the Borah Pridecast Prep Period Cold Call. Do you have a few minutes that I can ask you some questions?
Yeah, I sure do.
Okay. First of all, let's just start with the basics. What do you teach?
I teach environmental science.
And that's it, all day long, environmental science.
I teach actually 2 sections of AP environmental science and then 3 sections of non-AP environmental science.
Okay. How long have you been at Borah?
I have been at Borah for 4 years. This is my 4th year now.
And do you love it?
I love it.
Okay. I'm on like 12 or something, and I love it.
Yeah.
Excellent staff, excellent people, excellent students.
Yeah, and I used to live in this area, so both my kids went to Borah. So when I got hired here, I felt like I was at home. So
yeah, coming home,
really good fit.
Fantastic. So is this the only career you've had? You've only worked 4 years of your life?
No, I used to be a teacher in West Ada. For over 20 years, and then decided I needed a change and wanted to have a little bit of diversity in my teaching and teach some different kids. And so that's what brought me to Borah, and there was a position that opened up here, so I applied for it and I got it. So it's been great.
Well, we're glad to have you. I can tell you that.
Thank you.
That is for sure.
Thank you.
What is your favorite lesson or unit or subject that you like to teach?
That's a good question. I was thinking about that. I think my passion has always been in environmental science and getting kids outdoors. So I've seen a lot of changes happen when we can even go out onto campus and do water quality in our canal, or if we do take kids out into the foothills and do restoration after a wildfire and plant sagebrush to help restore critical, wildlife habitat that's been lost. Kids really connect with nature, and there's something to be said for that. It's a sensory experience. They get to smell the air, they get to, feel things, and they get to interact with other students and biologists. And then sometimes it's like, man, I want to do this. And so those kinds of activities that allow me to bring kids outdoors or make connections in another place other than inside the classroom are the ones that are most meaningful for me.
I always felt that too. The hands-on is important.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how's our water quality back in the canal? Can I go back there and drink it? Should I be doing that? No. But I also heard...
I don't want to do... You don't want to drink it.
I also heard it's good enough for fish, though.
Oh, yeah, but maybe, not trout, so to speak. There are some riffly areas there that offer a lot more oxygen, and there have been known to have some trout sneak into the canal, but most of the organisms that we found were things like leeches and other kinds of nematodes and those kinds of organisms that don't require a lot of oxygen and also can live in, an environment that doesn't have, it has a lot of sediment and things like that. So that canal is probably not conducive to that.
And probably warmer water.
Yeah, it's warmer
Also,
water.
Yeah. You say leech, and I think warm water.
Yeah.
Now, what was after leech? You said nematode?
Leech is a flatworm, and we found a lot of those when we went out and set some leaf traps, which are these netted bags that have a bunch of leaves in them, and we bury them in the canal, and then we go out 2 weeks later and take those samples back into the classroom and dump them in these big bins, and the kids just go crazy just taking a look at all that stuff and trying to identify them, and then we can measure the quality of the water with the types of organisms that we find in the canal.
Huh. Tell me, did you say nematode? You said nematode. What is that?
Nematodes. Those are roundworms.
Oh, not the flat ones, the round ones.
Yeah, okay. So roundworms, flatworms, there's all different kinds of snails. There's hundreds of snails in that canal as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were in an email a little while ago, and you mentioned something about wrestling chimpanzees in college. Tell me about this.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I did for a job, and actually after I went to school to be a wildlife biologist, there was an opening at New Mexico State University at the Primate Research Institute, and I thought, oh, great, I'm going to go work with chimpanzees. And it was a facility at the Air Force Base where they literally raised chimpanzees from birth until they were a year old. And then, unfortunately, they would ship them out to the National Disease Control Center out in Maryland, Bethesda, Maryland, to do animal testing on them. But I got that job to help raise chimpanzees. So we literally took care of chimpanzees. Moms would give birth to the babies. We'd change their diapers. We'd feed them monkey-chow out of a bottle. We'd wrestle them. We'd chase around with them, put them to bed just like a baby. They would get sick just like a baby. So that's what I meant by wrestling chimpanzee.
What an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, it was. It was pretty interesting. I learned a lot about things that I probably didn't want to learn a lot about, but a lot of behavioral stuff, which was pretty cool.
Very cool. I had a spider monkey sit on my shoulder when I was in Honduras. That's as close as I've been. So
nice.
It was kind of scary, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a good experience.
Fantastic. Well, we're glad you're at Borah now, and hopefully we stick around for a long time. Yeah,
I will. I'm here to stay.
Fantastic. I'll let you go. I know you're very busy, but thanks for talking to us.
Yep. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
These are Borah voices.
I don't want to write this research paper. I get that it's proof that I have learned writing skills in high school, but couldn't I have just submitted a portfolio of writing excerpts from my high school career? After first semester was over, it seemed like I was on the long, slow coast to graduation. Believing this, as you can imagine, was my first mistake. Right now it's March. There's still about 2 months left of school. Teachers are assigning things because, like I said, it's March. But whenever anyone asks me to do anything, it feels like a joke. Really? I want to ask at this late hour? I'm simultaneously a legal adult, have a car, and enough money to actually do something fun with my time, and you're asking me to write a 2,000-word research paper? And to all the adults who just rolled their eyes because you have real responsibilities and a deep enough understanding of our geopolitical climate to be filled with a constant sense of looming dread, I know. These are petty complaints, but I am a petty person with a limited scope of the issues that will affect me later in life, and I don't want to be writing this paper.
These are Borah voices.
What? Ms. Root, tell us a little bit about this for the Pridecast. What is this?
This is the second annual Borah High Bridge Cultural Fair. We launched this event last year to help educate our bridge newcomers about Borah traditions like prom and homecoming and then holidays that we celebrate in America. This year we had a need for helping our Borah newcomers learn about Borah clubs, sports, and academics so that kids can get involved in maybe an extracurricular activity or try out for a sport and learn about those traditions at Borah.
So what do we have here for a setup?
So each of the student council members is assigned to a table, a booth, and they're broken up by fall, spring, winter sports, academic clubs, foreign language clubs, interest clubs, like theater, art, and then I think that's it. Like other special interest clubs like culinary, FCCLA,
nice,
things like that. And then academic-based classes, things that you could do in class like choir, band, and art. So yeah, and each Bridge student will go to each of the 10 stations to learn a little bit about them. Student council members are dressed in attire. They do an activity. They'll have some treats. They learn about the staff that advise these clubs or coach. And then they just learn all about Borah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to walk around and get some sounds. Yeah. Here we have kids in line to play a harp. Have you ever played a harp before? Are you going to?
I already did.
Oh, did you? Did you? Was it fun?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Uh-huh.
It sounds pretty.
Yeah.
What's your name?
My name is Umesh.
Nice. Where are you from?
I'm from Nepal.
Oh, Nepal. Very nice. Hi. What's your name?
Ulimwengu.
Ooh, say it slower.
Ulimwengu.
Uliwengu.
Yeah.
Uliwengu. Ooh, where are you from? Uliwengu?
Africa.
Africa? What part of Africa? It's big.
Tanzania.
Oh, okay. Tanzania.
Yeah.
I don't want to break my phone, Ellie.
Nice. What up, Bolton?
We live in Nyarugusu camp, you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Awesome. Ceramics. Nice. Thank you.
Welcome.
Alright, my name is Whitney Mocker. I'm the ASB teacher. And I'm Jessica Wiseman, a sophomore representative. And we'll be telling you a little bit about winter sports. So do you guys know what snowboarding or skiing is?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. It's super fun. We have a team here at Borah that goes up, and you go up to Bogus every other weekend. This is the advisor, Miss Tyrus. She's super awesome and super nice. And they go up to Bogus Basin. It's 45 minutes away from Boise. And they drive up there and go skiing. And you get to miss a couple days of school, which is really cool. So when you go skiing or snowboarding, this is a snowboard, and you wear these big boots, and they strap in, and you wear gloves to keep your fingers warm, and some goggles so you don't get snow in your eyes, and snow pants and stuff. But I'll show you a video about skiing real quick. Okay, now I'm gonna play the harp. So this is an orchestra, like she said. And are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm kind of nervous.
Don't be nervous. You're fine.
Okay, ready?
Go. Thank you, Natalie.
Anyways.
Yay, that was good.
Do any of you want to try playing it?
Yeah. All you guys want to play it.
You want to try?
One at a time.
I'll help you. Okay.
Well, there you go. Thanks for listening to episode 6 of the Borah Pridecast. It's spring break, and we're going to take a little bit of one, and we will be back as soon as school starts up again with more shows, more people, and more